Hey, good morning, Mountainside Church. Thank you so much for being with us today for Church Online. The goal of what we are doing here with Mountainside Church is we are becoming passionate disciples of Jesus who make new passionate disciples of Jesus. So we want to become the people that God has created us to be. We want to follow him, and he has saved us from the old way of living. He saved us from our sin. He's brought us to new life. And we want to help other people know that good news as well. So thank you so much for being a part of the journey. And if you're here thinking, well, how do I actually do that? How do I become a passionate disciple of Jesus who makes new passionate disciples of Jesus? Well, we have something called the discipleship pathway here, where we just take our next step as time goes. And basically it starts with, it's 4 steps that we go through. And it starts with gather. So we gather together in moments like this. We gather with other people that love God. And as we do that, we get to our second step, which is where we grow in our faith. So this is where we actually push one another to get better as followers of Jesus, and we're there for one another and we're growing. And then the third thing is give back. So as we gather, we start to grow, and as we grow, we realize we actually need to give back to our local church. So we do this financially. We do this by using our time and our giftings and our abilities to serve on different teams and this sort of thing. And then we realize as we are serving our local church, you know what, there's a whole world out there that is not a part of our church yet, that doesn't know Jesus yet. So we're actually going to go and reach people for Jesus. And as we do those 4 things, as we gather and we grow and we give back and go, as we do that, watch what God will do in your life. You're going to be growing as a disciple of Jesus and helping other people become disciples of Jesus as well. So thank you so much for being a part of that journey. Let's get right to this sermon today. I have a story for you. It is a story I've probably told once or twice before, but I just think it's really funny. It's I can't remember when it was, maybe like 10 years ago. I'm with my wife, and life is good. And she loves going to Target, and we're just married, and it's just all this kind of thing. And I say that because one day my wife gets a text from her sister, and she does, like, there's just a huge gasp, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is everything okay? And she says, sit down for this, Mike. I'm like, okay. And I sit down. She says, Target is closing in Canada. And I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that. And she's like, you didn't tell me? And she's like, we need to get to the car. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, we need to get to the car. Everything is on sale. The entire store is on sale right now in Target. And I'm like, okay, I'll play along, whatever. So we get there, and I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. The Target parking lot is the most chaotic parking lot I've ever seen in my life. They're literally are cars hitting each other, cars backing into one another. Like every spot is zigzagged. It's like this group of people are coming in, chucking the keys, and it's like, just go, go, go. It's like the apocalypse, It's like, wow, this is wild. Anyways, you get inside. You've got carts filled to the brim, all this. They're not looking at what they're buying, all this. And Olivia's just filling up her cart, She's texting her sister Eliza, get here, everything's on sale, this. And I realize, wait, it's the entire store is 5% off. That is nothing. I'm like, put all this stuff back. We're not buying all these items that we don't actually need for 95% of the price, even though we don't need it. This is not worth it. And I'll never forget the one convo though, between two girls in an aisle. They're like, one of the girls was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm gonna buy this camping sleeping bag," and the other girl's like, "Oh, do you camp?" And then the girl said, "Well, no." The other girl's like, "Oh, but you need an extra blanket." And the girl's like, "Well, no." And then the girl purchasing it said, well, I mean, it's 5% off. I mean, why wouldn't I get this? And the other girl's like, yeah, that's true. And I'm just like, if you don't need something, why are you buying it? Even though, anyways, I'm pretty sure we weren't meant to spend money like this. Now, I tell that kind of story, and I'm kind of being silly with it, whatever. I tell that story acknowledging I am a huge hypocrite. Because even in the room that I'm in right now, I look around, I see many things that I have purchased that I didn't actually need, and they're useless things, and it was a waste of money. I just want to acknowledge that that's who I am, okay? I just want to acknowledge that. I'm not judging here. And don't worry, because my beautiful wife Olivia and her sister Eliza, they can still drive across the border to the American Target with a terrible exchange rate, but they still think they can save money. But that's okay. That's a different sermon. But today we're continuing our series about money. We're talking about money. And, we're specifically talking about this concept of being generous, this concept of tithing. And just a heads up, like we talked about last week, this isn't a shakedown. This isn't like, hey, how can we get more money out of the people that are a part of our church? That is not what we're doing here today, okay? There's no pressure to give here to Mountainside Church, okay? Just like we said last week, if you don't want to give, you don't have to give. This is between you and God. This isn't between you and me, okay? We don't exist as a local church to collect money from people. We actually want to help people and love people and serve people. But we do want to use our money properly, right? And we talked about this last week, but you can't buy groceries without money. Like, money's important. You can't pay for your kids to go on school trips unless you have money. You can't buy winter boots when it's a snowstorm unless you have money. Like money actually does impact your life. So God actually cares about money because it impacts your life, because he cares about you. And we should learn about what God thinks about money, right? In the Bible. So last week, just a little quick recap, we talked about this concept called tithing that we find in the scripture. And basically what it was is people in the Old Testament, they would go and they would bring 10% of what they have earned and they would bring it to God. Now, a lot of people were farmers back then, so they'd bring crops, or maybe if they were a merchant with trades or business, they would bring finances, whatever that looked like. But the real heart of why they would bring 10% to the temple, to the priests who were serving God and this sort of thing, it wasn't that God needed 10%. Like, God doesn't need anything. The heart behind it was people's hearts. So as people would give their 10%, what it actually was at the very heart of it it's an acknowledgement that, wow, God, everything that I have is actually from you. And me bringing my 10% is actually an acknowledgement of that. So yes, we planted the seed for our crops to grow, but God, you were the one who put the sun in the sky and caused it to rain. And you're the one that set up life itself. You put all the principles in place of life for the crops to grow. And what I want to do is I want to dive a little deeper into this concept today. And I specifically want to talk about this debate, whether we should tithe as people that follow Jesus. Because I don't know if you know it, but there is this debate in the church over this concept of tithing. And the big debate is this: is tithing a principle for the Old Testament, for the people of Israel specifically only? Or is it for us in the New Testament, after Jesus has come and died on the cross and risen again? Is it actually for the church today? And I think it's actually a really good question. It's a fair question. And I want to kind of create two scenarios, two caricatures, if you will. And I'm not mocking any of them, but this helps me process this, okay? I'm a visual person. So in one camp, you have Timmy Tither, okay? You have Timmy Tither. And Timmy Tither says tithing is a principle found in the Old Testament. And, we don't take literally every little thing in the Old Testament, but you take the principle of things forward. So we should tithe. And Timmy Tither says Jesus said to tithe in the New Testament. He modeled it for us. And that's what we should do. And then in this other camp, you have Generous Jerry. Generous Jerry. Good old Generous Jerry. I love Generous Jerry. And Generous Jerry says, no, tithing is too rules-based. It's too formula-based. Instead, we should just be generous people. That's actually what Jesus wants us to be. He wants us to live generous lives and not to be so strict in particular about this. And don't be so rigid with 10%, just be generous. And Tithing Timmy and Generous Jerry are best friends, okay? They're really good friends. It's not that they don't like each other. They just don't agree with each other, okay? So the question is, who's right? Is Tithing Timmy right? Or is Generous Jerry right? Who's correct? Well, this is what I want to do. I want to ask Jesus. And some people once asked Jesus a difficult question as well. Not about tithing specifically, but it's about finances and who owns what. And I think Jesus' answer is really going to help us here, okay? So you have Jesus Christ, the Son of God, over 2,000 years ago in ancient Israel, occupied by the Roman Empire, and you have God in the flesh, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And basically, he's teaching the people, and then you have this other group of people called the Pharisees. And they hated Jesus because they were very much by the rules and all this kind of thing. And they pretended to follow God publicly, but many of them in their hearts, they didn't care about God. They just wanted to look impressive and this sort of thing. So look what happens in Matthew chapter 22 in the Bible, verse 15. It says this: Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his word. So they're trying to trick Jesus. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, So these are people that worked for the king and really liked the king and actually really liked Rome, and the Pharisees didn't like Rome. So you got kind of two enemies working together to try to take out Jesus. Teacher, they said, we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? So they're saying, should we pay taxes to Caesar? And verse 18, but Jesus, knowing their intent, either evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Jesus isn't falling for it. So you've got these two groups of people that have kind of joined forces to try to trip up Jesus, and they ask him this trick question. It's a trick question they're trying to get him, because here's the context here with Israel. Israel, it was a nation that got conquered and then got conquered by again, and another empire came, and another, and who is in charge right now are the Romans. Okay, they've conquered Israel, and they have a bunch of other countries that all have to serve them, and they all have to pay taxes. Now, if Jesus says, yes, you should all pay taxes to the emperor, that would be following the law, first off. But some people would think, oh, Jesus, you're such a sellout. You're such a traitor. We've just lost respect for you, because there's kind of this movement growing in our country of like, we shouldn't submit to the Romans. We should be our own people. We should be independent. You're such a sellout. You're such a traitor, Jesus. So if he says, yes, pay your taxes, he's kind of in trouble with some people. Secondly, though, if he's like, no, you're right, people, I'm with you. Like, we should be strong and independent. God wants us to be free. Don't pay taxes to Rome. Then the Romans can get him into trouble. And Jesus actually could be arrested for publicly saying that. So he's kind of in a bind where if I was in that situation, I'd be thinking, oh no, what do I do? What do I say here? But look what he says next. In Matthew 22, verse 19. He looks at them, he knows it's a trap. He says, show me the coin used for paying the tax. So they brought him a denarius. And so that was a silver coin. And asked them, whose image is this? And whose inscription? So like, whose face is on this? Whose image is on this? Caesar's, they replied. So they're saying, yeah, well, it's the emperor's face on that. It's an emperor. And let's dive into this a little bit here. So the last time I preached on this story, I had a big coin prop with his face. And I was so proud of it. And I was holding it around like, yeah, this is Emperor Tiberius. Here's the coin. And it turns out that I like taped on some words, but I taped on one of the words upside down. And for like 15 minutes in the sermon, everyone was just giggling and talking to each other like, what a fool. And no one told me. And I preached the rest of the sermon feeling like a fool. But anyways, so I don't have a prop today. I'm still trying to get over that. I'm trying to heal from that still, but that's okay. That's okay. Anyways, picture with me, with our imaginations, a coin. And you have this face on it, and it's Emperor Tiberius. And Emperor Tiberius is the second emperor of Rome. And let me tell you about Emperor Tiberius. He was terrible. The first emperor, when Jesus was born, his name was Emperor Augustus. And he was one of the most successful, historians would say he was one of the most successful leaders in Rome's history. But by this time, Tiberius has taken over. He's Augustus's adopted son, and he is a terrible person. Tiberius did things so twisted that I could not repeat it on an online platform. Like, it's so twisted. With the person that Tiberius was, he started off as a promising leader. To be honest, it was like lots of potential there. But by the time he took over as emperor, he was not ruling Rome well. He did a lot of terrible things. And the people of Israel know this. And they hate this person. And that's why it's a trick question. Because again, if Jesus says, yeah, you should give money to Caesar, it's like, you want us to give our money that we earned to Tiberius. You know the things that Tiberius has done? No, I'm not giving that to Tiberius. Who would give money to such a terrible person to just continue to do terrible things? But again, if he says, no, don't do it, he's going to get in trouble with the Romans. Romans are very powerful. What's going to happen? It's this perfect trap. But then Jesus turns the trap into this beautiful teaching moment. And I love how you cannot beat Jesus. Nice try, guys. Look what he says to them. He says, show me, in verse 19 again, show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him the denarius, the coin. And he asked them, whose image is this and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what's Caesar's, and to God what is God's. When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. Basically, what Jesus says is he's saying, listen, if Tiberius's image is on it, it's his face is on it. It's already his. Just give it to him. Like it's his coin. His image is on it. Go give it to him. And he's talking to a Jewish crowd, and they would understand the next part when he says, and give to God what's God's. And it's a little tougher for us in a Western audience to kind of get it, because we maybe haven't memorized the scriptures yet or kind of know all the stories yet and this sort of thing. But think about it for a second. He says, since the image is on the coin, give it, since it's Tiberius's image, give it to him, it's his. But give to give to God what's God. He's talking about the image. So where else does scripture talk about something or someone having an image on someone else? Where else do you find that in scripture? Well, it's interesting. You actually find that in the Bible, at the very beginning of the Bible. And it's in Genesis chapter 1, the first chapter. What is it talking about? It's when God first creates the world and he creates humans. Look what it says in verse 26. Then God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and the livestock and all the wild animals on the earth and the small animals that scurry along the ground. And then look, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So humans are made in the image of God. You are made in the image of God. I am made in the image of God. What does that mean? Well, it means that when he created everything, it was really great. It was awesome. But when he made humans, when he made humanity, it wasn't just great. It was very great. There is a specialness to humans that nothing else in all of creation has. Humans are the representatives of God in this world. God actually used himself as the model when he made us. So guess what? You are not only a body of flesh, you actually have God's spiritual thumbprint on your life. Nothing else in creation is able to say that. There is a special value that humans have that nothing else has in this world. You are not just an animal, okay? You are not just a smart, intelligent animal. You are special to God. You are made in the image of God. And why do we love everyone? Why is every human valuable? Because they're made in the image of God. Why do we treat every human with absolute love and absolute respect, no matter who they are? Because regardless of what they do, they're made in the image of God. And if you mock someone or hurt someone, you're actually hurting someone made in the image of God. So it's really beautiful. No matter what you do or how you think or what you've done in your life or whatever, guess what? You are still valuable to God. And you are still valuable in this world because of that truth. Isn't that incredible? That's like another whole sermon. It's like, that is incredible. But look, listen. This is Jesus' answer to them, and it shows us how God views us. So when Jesus is saying, whose image is on the coin? Oh, it's Tiberius's? It's Caesar's? Okay, then give it to him, because it belongs to him. His image is on it. But what he is saying by saying that is, and everyone listening would have understood what he was getting at. He was saying, and by the way, whose image is on you? Oh, God's? Oh, true. Okay, God, yeah. God's image is on you. Okay. So make sure you give back to God what is God's. Give Tiberius what's Tiberius's and give God what's God's. In other words, you belong to God completely. Completely. And if you were made in the image of God, then you belong to God. So everything that you are actually, everything that you have, everything that's an extension from your life, it actually is God's in the first place. It's actually not ours, it's actually his. It's all God's. So let's play this out in life. The car that you drive, it's actually not your car. It's actually God's car. The house that you live in is not actually your house. You may have the deed for it and the piece of paper that says you own that house and that kind of thing. Guess what? It's actually God's house. The Netflix account that you have logged into and you click the thing and it says, oh, your name's on it. It's actually not your Netflix account. It's actually God's Netflix account. It's not your sweater, it's God's sweater. And you can do that for everything in your life. Listen, this is at least according to Jesus, okay? So what does this have to do with the tithing debate? It's like, okay, do we give 10%? Do we not? Listen, sometimes people debate, should we do 10% or Should we not do 10%? Is that God's 10% or is it not? Listen, the debate is not about 10%. The debate actually is not about tithe. You know what the debate actually should be about? It's about our lives. It's not 10%, it's 100%. All of it is God's. All of it. So listen, Mr. Tithing Timmy, guess what, Mr. Generous Jerry, who are best friends but disagree with each other. Can I tell you guys something? You're both wrong. You're both wrong. Life is not about whether you tithe or whether you're generous, because guess what? God owns all of it anyways, and he wants all of it anyways. So if you're tithing, but you're not living a generous lifestyle, you've missed the whole point. And if you claim to be generous, but you're not tithing, you've missed the whole point. Tithing is when we give 10%. And what it is it's an acknowledgement that God, 100% of my life is yours. God, we give to Tiberius what's Tiberius's, but we give to God what is God's. And God, Tiberius's image was on that coin, so we can give it to him. But guess what? Your image is on us, so we give ourselves to you completely. Listen, how can we not be generous people when we believe that God actually owns everything and everything that we have belongs to God? Listen, if we, this is where it ties in with Tithing Timmy and Generous Jerry here in their debate and this sort of thing. This is what I've noticed. If we're generous people, but we're not tithing though, are we actually generous people? I want to throw that out there. This is my experience with the generous Jerrys in my life. Okay, and I've had these debates and combos, and it's all been in good faith, and it's great. But when I talk to someone and they're Generous Jerry and they say, well, I don't need to tithe because I'm just generous. If the conversation always gets to, well, okay, so how much do you give then? They actually can't say because they honestly don't know. Because it's random gifts that they'll give sometimes. And I'm just talking about my own personal experience. Maybe your life is different. And the conversation typically leads to, hey, I know you claim that you're generous, but it probably actually, if we're talking about percentage wise, who gives more, it seems like the person who tithes actually gives way more than the person who's generous. It's interesting. And the generous Jerrys will claim that they give more because they're generous. But if you actually did the math on percentages, and I'm not talking about amounts. Who cares about amounts? I'm talking about percentages. It actually seems like the tithing Timmers, or what do I say? The tithing Tims are actually being more generous than the generous Jerrys. And here's the thing. Let's pause for a sec. Fine. Let's pretend tithing isn't a thing. Say it's like, you know what? You're right. Say we concede to that and say tithing Timmer or tithing Tim. You're wrong. It's about the generous Jerrys. This is how we're supposed to live. Perfect. Let's pretend that's the case for a second. Okay. Well, if we're generous, I feel like that's at least 10%, right? At least, if not way more than that. And just in my experience, working with people and myself and just having lots of these conversations, having a plan and a structure of, okay, this is what generosity looks like in my life. I've thought about it logically. I'm not just going to, on a whim, pretend that I'm generous. And then at the end of the year, I'm like, I don't know if I actually was. Having a plan and structure is actually what makes us generous. And that's what the tithe can be, okay? And a lot of people want to be generous. I truly believe that. I think actually all of us want to be generous. But a lot of the time, if we actually don't have a plan and some kind of structure behind that, generosity just doesn't end up happening. And it's not that we mean for that to happen. That's just the way life works. Now, with all that being said, I understand God looks at the heart. So maybe in some cases, 10% isn't even generous. And someone's like, well, I'm technically tithing. It's like, yeah, but you have so much money you didn't even notice. That's actually not generosity. You hear what I'm saying, though. You hear what I'm saying. I believe that if we want to be generous people, we start by having that intention to say, let's get to the tithe. Let's get to the tithe. Tithing people are generous people. Because, and can we just acknowledge, for most of us, 10% of money is a lot of money. That's a lot of our budget. And if we're upset about giving our 10% tithe, I think there's probably some bigger issues or hard issues that we need to get at, because God doesn't own just 10%. He owns 100% of what we have. And that's what I want to leave you with today, is not a call to give 10%. It's actually a call to live our entire lives. And this is what I like about the generous Jerry camp and thought is like, just be generous people, be generous people. And this is the main point today. God doesn't want 10% of our money. He wants 100% of our life. Let me say that one more time. God does not want 10% of your money. He wants 10% of your life. And this is so important to know because sometimes we think, oh, if we just tithe, we're off the hook. Perfect. No, this is not a call just to tithe. It's a call to be generous, right? It's all God's anyways. And some of us think that if we don't, if we just don't believe that tithing is for today, we're off the hook as well. If we're kind of in the generous Jerry camp, it's like, no, listen, no. That you're not off the hook either. It's all God's. It's all God's. Now, with that being said, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not asking for 100% of your paycheck to donate to the church or give to the poor, this kind of thing. That's not what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying is we need to have the mindset to acknowledge, God, all of this is yours. 100% of it's yours. And we actually trust you with that. And that the way we can acknowledge that 100% is by giving that 10% and by tithing. Okay? And let's remember, we are made in the image of God. But that also means that since his mark is on us, we belong to him. That is all his anyways. So what do we do with this? How do we tithe? How do we become generous people? Well, I think we remember that we do this because it's acknowledging who he is. And we remember that the 10% is actually a symbol that it's 100% his. Okay, but practically, how do we do this though? Because you might be thinking, and you're totally right to think this. You might be thinking, you have no idea what my budget looks like. You do not understand. This is simply not possible. I am scraping by. I am just getting by. I cannot give 10%. This is a huge ask. Who else on earth would ask this? This is wild. And listen, that's why we believe that the scriptures, when they say that there's actually a blessing with the tithe, that there will always be enough if we're tithing. And I just want to challenge you today to take this risk, to take this step of faith and try giving. So here's how we're going to do it really, really practically. And we introduced these 5 steps of giving last week, and this is how we're going to frame our giving from this point on. I really believe that we're going to be honoring God with our finances if we kind of live through these 5 steps. There are 5 steps of generosity here at Mountainside and the local church. So the step 1 is being a first-time giver, okay? So if you've never given before, this is your step. Give for the first time. Give $1 if that's what it takes, but be a first-time giver. The next step you take after that is you become a regular giver. So that's not just kind of on a whim, just kind of random or this. It's where there's a set amount. Maybe that's weekly, maybe that's monthly, maybe that's every 2 weeks, whatever that looks like, where you say, I have a number and this is what I give every month or every week, whatever it is. Maybe it's $10, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $500. I don't know what your life looks like, but you have a set amount. Step 3 is becoming a percentage giver. And this is where we take that regular giving, and as time goes, we actually increase it. So we go from $10 to $20. We go from $20 to $30. We go from $30 to $40. And we actually increase that giving as time goes until it's at least 1% of our income. And we say, wow, I'm actually giving 1% of what I make. And then as time goes, you move that up to 1.5%. And then you move it to 2%. And as time goes, you move it to 3%. And what you do is you're actually climbing as time goes until you eventually get to that 10%. And that's the step number 4, where we're actually a tithing giver, where we say, God, 100% of what I have is yours, and here's 10% back to you. And then as time goes with that, we go to step 5, which is actually becoming a generous giver, where we're giving God his 10% to acknowledge it's all from him. And we actually give a percentage or a set amount beyond that. And we said this last week, but I like how another pastor says it, of how when they take up their offering, they say, we're going to have a time where we take up God's tithe, that 10% is his, and then your offerings. Like, this is something that we are choosing to do on top of that. So this is my question for you. We talked about this last week, but which step of giving are you on? Which step are you on? And can I tell you also, sorry if this is a little repetitive from last week, but listen, there is no negative pressure to give though right now, okay? We never want you to give out of guilt ever. And if, in this, what we said last week, if you are giving out of guilt, do not give. We do not want your money. We do not want you to give if you feel somehow pressured in a negative way or guilty in some way or like an annoyed way, like, oh, they want me to do this and they're expecting me to, so I guess I'll do this. Please, honestly, I'm saying, as the pastor of this church, do not give if that's what your heart is, okay? Only give if you want to give, okay? This is between you and God, okay? And here's what we want you to do, or here's what we don't want you to do. I as one of the pastors, I'm actually not saying flip your budget upside down and flip it, and it's going to be this massive sacrifice starting today, and like you got to take the kids out of hockey now, and you can't go eat out ever again, and this kind of. I'm not saying that. I'm not actually saying that. No. Maybe God's asking you to do that. You better do it then if He's asking you. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is find where you are, and just take your next little baby step. That's all I'm saying today. That's all that I would sincerely ask of you today. So which step are you on? If you have never given before, I challenge you, give something. Even if it's $10 to start, perfect. If you don't give regularly, start giving regularly, okay? If you give regularly, could you bump that up a bit as time goes until it gets to 1% of what you give? And if you give some sort of percentage, would you, as time goes, bump that up every once in a while until we get to 10%? And if you tithe, would you pray about and ask God, what do you want me to give beyond the tithe? That's all I'm saying. There's not negative pressure here to be like, you have to jump to this or do this. All I'm saying is, what is your next baby step? That's what I'm asking you, okay? And again, like we said last week, the church is not in financial trouble, okay? I'm not being pressured by someone to do this. I'm not personally benefiting from this. We just care about your heart spiritually. And we're just going through the Bible here. This is what we have here. So I know we're keep getting more practical. The last practical thing that I would challenge you to do is we have something called the Generosity Challenge. And basically it's where you go to the website, mountainside.church/give. At the very bottom, there's a little button. And if you click that button, there's a little sign up form. And basically what you're signing up for is an email list where every 4 months we're going to send an email out saying, hey, could you consider now taking your next baby step in giving? And I don't even mean like jump from step 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. I mean, like if you have a regular amount of giving, it's just going to be a little prompting of like, oh yeah, I wonder if I need to bump that up actually a little bit. Or if you're at 1%, you say, I wonder if it's actually time for 2%. And what we're going to do just collectively as a church, we're all going to collectively grow in our giving as time goes. We're going to do that 3 times a year. It's going to be very low key, low pressure. And I'm just confident that as we commit to be generous people, we're not gonna regret that. I really believe that. So go to mountainside.church/give. At the very bottom, there's a button. And the reason we want you to sign up for that is we just want to get you on this email list, and we'll send it out, and we'll kind of do it all as a big group together where we're collectively giving more. So that's not for certain people, no matter what step you're on. I encourage you to be part of that. And as a bonus, we did this a couple of years ago when we did something similar. We have this book called The Treasure Principle that we've purchased, and we just want to give that to you as an appreciation to say thank you. And it's just talking all about generosity, and I think that will really encourage you. But it's an exciting time for our church. So just to recap, everything is already God's. He wants us to be generous, and I encourage you, take your next step to get there. And you can sign up for this challenge, and we have this book for you, and we're just going to send you those emails every couple months, just to remind you. Again, and I know we're being repetitive from last week. I want to just really make this clear. No one's personally benefiting from this, okay? No one's pressuring us to do this. We're talking about this because God loves us, and the best kind of life that we can live is a generous one, okay? And I do want to close with this story, though. I want to let you know that Olivia and I, we live this out, okay? We live this out. Is it okay if I tell you an embarrassing story? Can I tell you an embarrassing story about my life? I'm not proud of this. So we tithe every week. We have for our entire marriage. We've tithed every single week, my beautiful wife and I. Every Sunday morning, Mountainside Church, I get an email sent to my personal email saying you've tithed this morning, or you've given the amount. And this is the embarrassing part. Near the beginning of 2024, so this is a little bit ago, my credit card got hacked. And anyways, what happened was I got a new credit card. I reset all the bills, this sort of thing. And the end of 2024 comes, and we're doing a Christmas love offering, and I go on the website, I donate to that because I love our staff and this sort of thing. I put my credit card info to donate, And there's a little button that shows all your past giving from the last year. And I'm like, oh, let's click on that. That's kind of exciting to look at. And I look at it, and it says that I just gave that one time at the end of December in 2024. And I text our bookkeeper, I text our operations pastor, and I say, tell me there's another email for this that I use for giving online, because it says I only gave one time this year. And it turns out for all of 2024, I thought I had been giving every Sunday morning. But when my credit card got hacked, I updated all the bills and all this, but I never updated the church giving on our website. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And since the emails are sent to my personal email, I mean, I have a hard enough time checking my work email. My personal email just, I didn't notice that it wasn't going through. And I feel embarrassed because, like, Olivia and I, we have a budget. We have it all set out and this sort of thing. I clearly was not following it detailed enough. And, I pay off my credit card each month. It's all just for online spending. How did I not realize that we had this extra amount every month that we weren't giving? So I call Olivia and I say, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I've really botched this. I thought we were tithing all year long. We haven't given a penny until now. What are we going to do? And Olivia says, well, I guess our savings are going to take a hit. And it's one of the last weeks of the year. Thank goodness that we found it when we did. But I remember it, and it was tough to do, but I wrote that check, the year's worth of giving that I thought I was doing every week. And I handed it to Blair and I said, hey, can you go deposit this in the bank? And let me tell you, it hurt to do that. It hurt. And before I did that, I was talking through Blair, who's our operations director, overseeing all the finance here at the church, and or the staff in charge of that, in partnership with the treasurer. And I was just going through all the scenarios where, I said, God sees my heart. He knows that I thought I was giving. I didn't mean to. And by the way, I'm just speaking on behalf of my family. Okay. At the end of the day, this is a family decision that we made. But the decision was that you know what? If we really believe that God's the source of everything that we have, and if a tithe is an acknowledgement of that truth, I mean, how could we not be generous back to God and say, okay, God, this is yours. This is an acknowledgement back. So we went through the different options, but it was really never a debate, right? God has been so kind to my family. How could I not be generous back to him? And listen, I tell you that story. First off, it's embarrassing, and that's okay. I'm a human, just so you know. I tell you that not so that you will do the same. You honestly don't have to. I'm telling you, as one of your pastors, do not repeat the story I just did, okay? Unless God is asking you to. Like, if you didn't give last year, don't write a massive check to be like, I got to make up for last year. Don't do that. I'm asking you to not do that, okay? Please do not do that. Unless God is asking you to do that. I tell you this so that you know that I'm preaching to you today with some moral authority on this. And this is a genuine conviction and belief. I wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't do it myself. And as a pastor, I'm supposed to be an example to you. So this is my challenge to you. Follow my example in this way. Follow my example in this way. Take the tithe so serious that you would say, you know what? This is a sacrifice. This is a sacrifice that we actually need to make because this is too important. The tithe is too important. It's too important to be generous. I cannot miss this. Now, I'm not saying jump straight to 10% and above and all that. Don't blow up your budget. I'm not asking you to. But this is my ask. What is your next step? Start with something. Start with $10 per month. Start with 1% of your income. Start with a first-time gift. Whatever that looks like. You will not regret giving to God. I promise you. And God doesn't want 10%. He actually wants your entire life. He actually wants 100%. So let's be people who do that. Let's be generous people. And thank you for your giving. Thank you for your giving. We have a very generous church. And I just want to commend you for that. Next week, we're closing off this series. And we're tying it all together. We're not talking so much about the tithe specifically next week. We're talking about some practical tools about how we actually live this out. So if you're saying here today, you're saying, okay, I'm kind of buying what you're saying here. I'm kind of, understanding what you're saying. Maybe I'll jump on that generosity challenge. Maybe I'll take my next step. You have to be here next week, okay? Because it will be very helpful for you. It'll be very helpful for you to be here next week. And with that, why don't we close in prayer? Lord, thank you for who you are. God, thank you for just the incredible, generous church that we have here at Mountainside. God, I pray that you would continue to bless us financially so that we could be a blessing to others. And God, I pray that you would help us take that next step, whatever that looks like. I pray you give us the strength to do it, the heart to do it, the courage to do it. And we love you with all of our hearts. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen. And I know we just talked for 35 minutes about giving and finances and this sort of thing. But what's the heart of what all of this is? The heart of it is Jesus Christ and how he saved us, and how we want to take this message to the rest of the world, to the rest of our cities. And it's only because of his generosity. And we talked about this last week, I believe, but one of my favorite scriptures, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. And, at the end of the day, like, who cares about money? Like, money doesn't matter. Yeah, it impacts your life, all this kind of thing. What actually matters is, what does your relationship with God look like? Do you have a relationship with God? Are you in God's family? Are you a child of God? Because the truth is this: when God created you, he made you in his image, and it was to be in relationship with him and to represent him in the world. The truth is that we sin. There's separation between us and God. But the good news is this: is over 2,000 years ago, God the Father sent God the Son, Jesus, from heaven to earth. Jesus lived the perfect life. He died on the cross to take away our sins, and he rose again. And because Jesus has done that, that relationship with God that was supposed to be there, that's broken because of sin, Jesus has made us right with him. So I encourage you, if you have never put your faith in Jesus, you've never put your trust in Jesus, make that decision today. Turn from your way, turn to Jesus's way. Confess that we need him. Confess that we sin, that we need his forgiveness. Believe that he died on the cross and rose again for you, and you will be saved. Okay? I want to encourage you, right where you are, in your heart and your thoughts and your mind, tell him, God, I believe in you. I'm sorry for what I've done. I want to live your way. And God's arms are open wide, ready to receive you as his child. If that is you today, go to mountainside.church/Jesus. There's more information there, and we're just so pumped for you. We're so proud of you. And with that, we're gonna close off. We'll see you same time, same place next week.